Speaking of an overlooked detail, I really have to go into the fact of Christopher Darden when he was prosecuting the O.J. Simpson case. If you are a prosecutor, one of the advantages you have is the evidence. And the evidence should never, ever, ever, ever be placed in the hands of a defendant, a criminal defendant, right? Because ultimately, what ended up happening was a big goof made by Christopher Darden. As a first year law student, that was drilled, and re drilled into our heads over and over and over again. Do not allow a criminal defense attorney to manipulate or touch or interact with your evidence. What did Christopher Darden do? Christopher Darden gave him the glove. The glove was a fitted glove. O.J. Simpson had stopped taking his arthritis medication. He also was stretching his hands out. Also, the glove had blood on it, which caused it to potentially shrink a little bit as well. And then you can't forget Johnny Cochran. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. But today we're talking about Live One, the cold cases that were solved by one tiny mistake. So ultimately, new DNA technology is progressing so quickly. I mean, very quickly. To the point that now you can extrapolate who the suspect might be based on their genetics. So if you recall, D'Angelo, who was the Golden State rapist, was actually caught because he made one fatal error, and that error was shoplifting. And D'Angelo was a former cop. He was also the one who would actually attack the husband and the wife. And at one point, people wondered if D'Angelo had actually been at the community meeting about the rapist. He was there. And the reason they know that he was there is because he ended up attacking some people who had actually spoke at that community event. And that's how they realized that he was actually there. And they truly thought that he would be there. But it's not like he was wearing a neon sign saying, hey, I'm the Golden State rapist. That's not what he was doing. Additionally, genealogy is a really interesting thing to be able to use that. People get mitochondria from their mothers. They get other things from their fathers. So it's definitely interesting to see that, as well as re-examining evidence, because after a certain period of time, you have to be able to go back and re-investigate what has worked, what's not worked, where you still have gaps, where you need to continue working, other tactics that may help you solve the case. And ultimately, sometimes you have witnesses out there that don't know they're witnesses. They don't realize that they are actually an active part of the case and that their input would be extremely necessary to potentially solve this case. And sometimes they remember later, right? They remember certain facts later that one small fact can actually solve the case. Sometimes it's the smallest detail that can make the biggest difference. Additionally, digital records. I mean, you think about every time you use your debit card, every time you go get gas. I mean, you're being filmed constantly at times, right? And so that's really important. And live part 2 is, can someone truly vanish without a trace? In a word, I'll give you 2 words. Patricia Meehan. For those of you that know, or those of you that don't know, Patricia Meehan got involved in a car accident in Wyoming in the 80s. She was seen and seemed to be okay. However, she seemed a little out of it. There were a lot of witnesses there who said that she should have been able to survive the crash. However, she just simply walked away. They thought she would come back. She did not. There have been numerous sightings that said that they saw her. However, none of those have been corroborated necessarily. And so to ask if somebody can truly disappear without a trace, yes, it's entirely possible. Missing adults can decide to leave, and there's nobody that's going to keep them from leaving. As well, you think about financial footprints, which are much more prevalent today than they were in the 80s. So every time you're using your debit card, every time you're getting gas. You have cell phone towers now. You have cell phones who monitor where you are, any number of things like that, as well as surveillance. Oftentimes people do surveillance through videos and things like that. There have been a lot of cases where they've actually found that someone went to a gas station and were able to track that person back. There was another case that I recall where a man said that he and his wife had gone on vacation together and that she was in the vehicle with him. However, they were able to use the toll booth video to show that there was no one in the passenger seat of the vehicle because he had already taken her life. And so that is another thing. I mean, all this technology is moving at a rapid pace. It is helping solve crimes, which is great. Additionally, people can voluntarily disappear if they like. Sometimes that can be due to mental illness. It can be due to some sort of strain or some sort of stress, or a mental health break. And so investigators prioritize leads that they think are going to lead them closer to the person. However, Patricia Meehan's case has survived almost 40 years and not been solved, which has to be extremely frustrating for the family and friends and loved ones of Patricia Meehan. As a victims' rights advocate, I definitely appreciate what the family's going through because it has to be extremely difficult after all this time. So my hope is that eventually this case gets solved and that there can be some closure there. So I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into Grace and Gavel, where truth meets compassion. My name is Buffy. I'm an almost 18-year criminal defense attorney. And if you got value in this, please feel free to like and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. Hopefully you have a great rest of your day and hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.